everybody. Welcome to Skyslope 101, submitting deals and getting paid. Skyslope is the software or the platform where we upload all of our transaction documents, our listings, our contracts, everything that goes with them for compliance and getting paid. Now, for this presentation, you will navigate eXp World the way we do in all of our presentations. There's a chat function at the top where you can enter questions that I will answer as soon as we take a break, as soon as we get to the end. And then at the bottom, you have a microphone mute button. When it's blue, the way it shows here, it means your mic is live. And when you have a white circle through it, it is muted. You can click on the center screen and then click on the zoom in button. And then to unzoom, you just click sort of off to the side of the screen to undo it. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into submitting deals and getting paid. Now, when you have a new listing or a new transaction, we ask that you create your Skyslope file and upload your documents within 2 business days. This is for multiple reasons. One is it is the law. In Illinois, you are supposed to share all of your executed documents with all parties to that contract within 24 hours. And your brokerage is one of those parties. We actually get audited and get our wrists slapped if someone comes in and says, show me your listings that you have, we can pull it up on MLS, therefore we should have it. If it's an MLS, we should have those list docs, okay? And the same thing for a pending transaction. So that is the deadline. You have 2 business days to create your Skyslope file and upload your documents. If you have any questions about those documents and those transactions and what is required for compliance, you can reach us at il.broker@exprealty.net. That is the broker team. So your broker team consists of Steve Reddig, your designated managing broker, Craig Temple, and myself, Tracy Ryan, your managing brokers. So the 3 of us are the broker team. And then we have 3 contract compliance analysts who do all the Skyslope reviews and all of the compliance reviews of your documents. That is Susan, Joanna, and Diana. And when you email il.broker, all of those questions then are funneled to us. Now, when you're sending documents to be signed from an e-signing platform like DocuSign, DigiSign, Loop, you're going to actually use il.sign instead of il.broker, because that's how we keep all of our signing requests together and we can address them in a timely manner and we can track them and make sure we are getting all of them. So we ask that when you are sending docs for signature, you do send them to Steve Reddig, but you use il.sign at exprealty.net. And then we also have il.contracts. If you don't, you can just use the first 2, but il.contracts was initiated for all compliance and questions about your actual contracts and documents. And that includes the 6 broker team members that I already told you there. What we're going to talk about today is using Skyslope, how to set up a Skyslope file, the documents that are required for your transaction. We'll touch briefly on how to submit earnest money if you want eXp to hold earnest money, and then what do you have to have in your file before you can get paid on your deal. So we're going to do a demonstration, a live demonstration of Skyslope here in a second. This is where you're going to upload all of your documents. But before we do, I want to point out how to get Skyslope help. So at the bottom right of your Skyslope screen, you see a support button. And what that will be is a live chat feature with Skyslope. Now, Skyslope is a third-party company. It's not eXp. They are the software company for that platform. So if you have a question like, hey, you created a file, you canceled it, you didn't mean to cancel it, now you want it back, or maybe you converted it to a transaction and you didn't mean to, you want it to go back to being a listing file, they can help you with that. So platform support, not questions about your documents and why we're asking you to get a disclosure and things like that. Those are eXp questions. This support function down here is just for when you are having trouble with the actual platform. So when you do click on that, you will click, start chat, and you will get help from them using their online chat. And we use it all the time, even from our end. If if there's something that we can't change and we need it changed, we actually will also use the online chat function with Skyslope forms. So I've used it, hundreds of times, and I know it works. They also have different help features out here with including like video libraries and, articles that if you're looking for particular help with something Skyslope related, but oftentimes you're going to want to come to us with most Skyslope questions. So we can help you with that. So we are going to get right into the Skyslope demonstration here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my Skyslope screen with you. Now, this is my agent account Skyslope screen. This is what I see when I go into Skyslope. And it actually looks a little different on the staff side. So I'm going to demonstrate from my agent account. Now, when you come into SkySlope, you will see over here on the left, or maybe you won't, and then you can close it and open it again. They have these quick actions. What these are links into SkySlope Forms. SkySlope Forms is an e-signing platform, but it's a very robust one where you can create a file, keep all of the details of your clients out there, and upload a lot of forms and documents into that file. And you can choose which ones you're going to fill out and send, and then you can add more forms and send those, and it'll keep them all tracked under that file. So that's great. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't create a file in SkySlope. So I think it's confusing if you try to use these quick actions right away. I would not recommend you use these links to SkySlope Forms until you are familiar with SkySlope Forms. Once you've used SkySlope Forms all the way through for a few deals, then you could try giving one of these quick actions a shot. But I think what it does is it tries to use a shortcut, but then leads to you not understanding where your file went and where everything went. So I do not recommend these quick actions. So we are going to talk just about SkySlope. Now, SkySlope has two different kinds of files. There's listings and there's transactions. So when you are the list agent, whether it's a sale or a rental, you have this active listing, right? And it's not under contract yet, but you still have this active listing that is or is not listed in MLS. We should have those documents. So you need to create a listing file in SkySlope. But then once it goes under contract, you will convert it to a transaction. Or if you're on the buy side or the tenant side, you will just create a transaction in the first place and you'll skip the listing part. So by the end, when his file closes or is getting settled, it's a transaction. You can't get paid on just a listing file. It has to be a transaction for you to get paid. So everything eventually converts to a transaction, or it just starts as a transaction and settles that way. So in SkySlope, you'll see actives. Those are your listings, and you'll see pendings. Those are your transactions. So, over the life cycle of a file, even the listings will become transactions. So I'm going to show you both ways. I'm going to show you how to create a transaction create a listing, and then how to convert it to a transaction. But remember, if you're on the buy side, you are simply going to create a transaction in the first place. But these numbers up here will be your numbers. I have one pending file right now because I still do work, as a realtor, but you will see all of your work out here as well. So what you will start with is creating a new listing. But when you want to find things you've created, you'll be able to find it either under view transactions or view listings. If you can't find it there because maybe you were in the middle of converting it from a listing to a transaction and you didn't finish that process, you can always search for it here by address. Okay. You can search for it here. So even if it's a different status, if it's incomplete, if it's canceled, you will still find it by searching the address, even if you cannot find it in either your transactions or your listings. Okay. But we're going to go into create new, and we're going to create a listing. Now, rather than just kick us right into the file and ask us to fill in all the blanks, it starts by asking us a bunch of questions and then creates it for us. So we're going to create the listing. If you have SkySlope Forms already up and running and you've already created a file in SkySlope Forms, you could click Forms here and type in the address, and it would find it for you. Okay, I'm going to use address lookup. And this is where if you start typing in a property address, it uses Google to try to help you and locate that address, unless it's a vacant lot or new construction, so Google's not super clear on it. You will find it out here, okay? Because I use fake addresses for trainings, I'm going to switch to manual address. And I'm going to use a fake address, okay? And then I'm going to click Let's Go. Now it says, what type of listing is this? And this is a residential sale. You see there's residential lease and residential sale. There's commercial lease and sale. There's vacant land because they don't have as many documents. And then there's express offers, which we're not going to get into. Now, the type of file is important for two reasons. One, it sets the document checklist that is required for that type of transaction, but it also will eventually create a transaction file in Enterprise. Once it becomes a transaction, we will get a parallel, another file in Enterprise not just Skyslope, but an enterprise, that's how they pay you. And that's how they track your production and pay everybody out and collect fees and all that. All of that happens in enterprise. And that file gets created from here. Okay. So you have to set up your Skyslope file appropriately for the enterprise file to be set up appropriately. So there's a difference, even on the enterprise side, between a sale and a lease. That's, because they're not paid the same. So this part is important. Okay. So we're going to do residential sale. And then we're going to click next question. How much is the property listed for? I always do an even 500 because we like making money. And then this is the listing commission. Okay. Now, if you are on the buy side of the file, you would not be creating a listing. You'd be creating a transaction, but you're going to get a similar question because, they still think we might know both, even though that's, everything has changed now. So even if your seller says, yes, I'm prepared to pay a buyer's agent, it's not a co-op. That hasn't, until we have a contract, we don't know this number yet. So I would just leave it blank. Sales is the buy side, listing is the list side. So you're going to add those two in there. And you can switch to flat rate and make them dollar amounts instead of percentages. You can add a co-list agent. This feature here does not work great. People struggle with this. So I will show you where you can add a co-list agent once you have your file set up. This becomes hard to search for other agents. So even though this is here, it's probably not the easiest place to do it. So I will show you that in a future step. So we're going to click next question. When does your listing start and when does it expire? This should line up directly with your listing agreement itself. Okay, what is the expiration date on your listing agreement? That is what you will enter here. Next question, when was the property built? This is simply so we know if you need a lead-based paint disclosure. The source of this deal. We do not use Skyslope as a CRM. So this is not a really important question. We can't, you can't even pull a report saying how many of my deals last year were from my sphere and how many were from an office lead. That's not a feature that we subscribe to with Skyslope. But the only things that will come out are perhaps like a REO account or the relocation department might tell you that you have to set it up this way if you are working with them. Otherwise, I always just use a personal referral or previous customer, that sort of thing. Because you have to answer the question, but it's not going to affect anything. So, and now I need my seller's names. Okay, so I'm going to use Susan Seller and her phone number. Now you can switch to a company seller and I could say, Susan's Properties. And it would say that then instead of a person's name. But I'm going to leave it at Susan Seller and I'm going to add an additional and I'm going to say, and Steven Seller is the other person on the deal, the other seller, and then I'm going to click next question. And here it gives us a sort of summary of everything we've answered so far so we can make sure it's right. Most of these things, though, can be easily fixed if they're not right. The only things that cannot be easily fixed are if you picked the wrong kind of transaction. The other thing is the question that we didn't see, because I'm only licensed in Illinois, is if you are licensed in more than one state, it should ask you, like if you're licensed in both Illinois and Wisconsin, you should have a chance at some point to say whether this is an Illinois or a Wisconsin file. Because if you are licensed in 2 states, it has to go through Skyslope to the right state brokerage. So if you are like, hey, I'm licensed in both states, but I'm only seeing Wisconsin here, so I'm going to go ahead and create my file. If it's an Illinois file and you're only seeing Wisconsin, don't do that because you'll have to cancel and restart the file anyway, almost certainly, because it'll be set up completely wrong. So, but other than that, you see everything here and then you click create my listing. It's going to think a second because it is creating our file and populating all of this information into that listing file. Now our Skyslope file has the main information up here at the top, and then it also has tabs. Okay, we've got, so far in our listing file, we've got a listing tab, contacts, and checklist. And then documents tab is where all the documents are actually stored, but we attach them to different requirements in the checklist. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. There's also a log. The log will track everything. Hold on a second, Christine, okay? You can put 7% in any commission that you want. You just can't share. There's no commission sharing. Okay. Christine asked, how do we put 7% commission in? You can do that. Your commission can be anything you want. You could put 20% commission, but there is no, since the NAR settlement in August, there is no more sharing. So none of your listings should say something like 7% with, 4 to me and 3 to the buyer's agent. It should never be that anymore. So we are always going to be starting with just our list side commission. But anyway, so we've got our files are always going to be based on the address. And you see active here, that means it's a listing file. If it was a transaction, it would be pending. Okay. So back in our listing tab here, if I go to the first tab, which is the listing tab, you see all that basic information. Anything with the red asterisk is required. And so anything with the red asterisk was one of the questions that we were asked, obviously. So, we've got our all that information there. We've got the commission information, and then the dates. Um, there's not too much to it. And then the contacts tab will grow once it's a transaction. Right now, it's only the seller. And then we've got our checklist of documents. So right away on a residential sale, our listing document checklist is the listing agreement, an MLS sheet showing the full agent report, the one that you would print out and take with you on a showing because it has the listing agent's information, showing maybe some showing information and showing instructor the agent private remarks, that whole report. But when you print, you instead of printing to a printer, you print and then click save to a PDF and upload that PDF here. Documents in Skyslope have to be either a PDF or a JPEG. They can't be HEIC files, which are actually video files, which is why we can't open them in Skyslope. If you upload them, we won't be able to open it at our end. So you want to make sure everything's a PDF or a JPEG, and I believe PNG works as well. But it's not uncommon to run into problems where someone sends you something, you upload it, not realizing it's not either of those kinds of files, and you have to fix it later. So what we're looking for is PDFs. So we want our signed listing agreement, the MLS report, and we want the property disclosure, lead paint, and radon. Now, in this case, the house is fairly new, so you wouldn't need the lead paint disclosure. So you can type in not applicable if you'd like. The compliance team, our 3 CCAs, whoever reviews your file, will just mark this as not required. So don't worry about that. So we'll have the property disclosure and radon. Now, every deal for eXp has to have the signed eXp ABA and wire fraud. The ABA is not unusual. Most big brokerages have one because we have to disclose, it's federal RESPA law, that we have to disclose any vendor relationships we have that we might benefit from. Okay. For instance, we're partial owners of Success Lending, right? That's a partnership between us and another lending company. So Success Lending, we have a vested interest in. So if one of our clients was to use them, they need to know that on the back end of that, we have something at stake. We're not getting a direct kickback or anything, but we still have something at stake in their success. So we have to disclose that. If we have any kind of a relationship that says that, we're going to get $20 every time someone sells a warranty for a warranty company, that has to be on our ABA, our affiliated business disclosure. Even if your client is not going to use any of those, we still need them to sign it. It's still a requirement that we get our clients to sign it. So that and the wiring fraud is rampant right now. People will hack into everybody's emails. They'll know you've got a deal coming up. They'll get your client's email address and they will send them very realistic fake wire instructions. And that's a very dangerous thing because wires, if they wire their money away, they're not getting it back. And we don't want to be the one that they come after for that. So we want to be very clear with warning them that they should independently verify all wire instructions with whoever sent them to them by calling the title company, making sure they're even calling the right phone number and verifying those instructions. They should be coming over an encrypted email and everything that you can think of, right? And they'll never come from us. Tell them we will never send you wire instructions. So if they get an email from eXp saying, here's your wire instructions, they can assume it's not real. But we want to warn them of that. And then we also want them to sign the wiring fraud advisory, our version, not, if it's from a local board, we want ours signed, that they have been warned. And then it's not our fault if they have run into trouble. So those are the last 2 documents. This last one here, disclosure of seller's designated agent. If you use the IAR listing agreement, if you use most of the local boards listing agreements, agency is within that document. The boards that, or the listing agreements where you would still need an agency doc are the eXp listing agreement, for instance. If you use the eXp listing agreement, you need to use also the eXp's Illinois agency disclosure and addendum document, which will show you where those are. And you could put that here down in number 8 in that disclosure of seller's designated agent. If you use the Quad City board listing agreement, if you're from the Quad Cities, they have a Quad City designated / dual agency disclosure that they use for agency because being in 2 different states, their listing agreement can't, try to meet both requirements. So they use that additional document as well. So if you have one of those, then you need this down here. But if you're using the Main Street, the CAR, or the PAR, if you're using a lot of the local board listing agreements or the Illinois Association, you wouldn't even need this down here. You could just put not applicable, or you could just leave it and it'll work out. Okay. So what we're going to do though is I'm going to show you how to put a document in the file. There's multiple ways you can do that. You can go into the Documents tab. You can upload a document there and then assign it to the checklist, because the Documents tab is the file drawer. That's where all the documents are actually kept. But then we attach them, to meet each requirement, we're attaching a document from the Documents tab here. Think of it as like a Post-it note. We're taking a document that's in the Documents tab and we're posting it to one of the checklist points, because this is where we review your documents for compliance. You could put all kinds of stuff in the Documents tab that you just want to keep in there, but this is where you attach the things that we need to review. So I'm going to, but you can also just drag and drop it to the checklist. That's a shortcut, because it's doing both at the same time then. Okay, it's putting the document in the Documents tab and assigning it to the checklist at the same time. And that's what this paperclip is. Okay, so I've now put a signed listing agreement into this checklist, in the listing agreement spot. So now to jump ahead, we'll say that you have filled all of these in, you've uploaded all of these docs, but now you have a contract. Okay, so now you want to take your listing file and click accepted contract, because now you have, you're going to convert it to a transaction. Before we do that though, I want to take one step back. I forgot one thing. This email address here that's in your file, this is a unique email address to this Skyslope file. And even if I went and changed the address right now, which I could go completely change this address, this email would not change. It is the sort of the street address in reverse. And you can see there's an extra 1 here because I've used this address earlier today. So they add a 1 to it, but it's basically the address. And what this is good for is emailing documents to your file. It's not for asking questions. If you email us using this email address, we will not see it. But if you use it to forward attachments, it will put those attachments in the Documents tab. It won't put them in the checklist. You still have to go into the Documents tab and assign it where you want it to go in the checklist, but it will put documents in your file. That's what this is. Okay. Don't worry about this review or undersigned. We are not currently using this at all. So that's not a thing, but we're going to go ahead and accept contract. And we're going to say, yes, create a transaction. Now, what we've done is we've taken this listing file and now it's a transaction, but it's incomplete because we have to finish setting it up. We're going to have several tabs of fields that have to be completed with red asterisks. But because it was a listing file, a lot of it's already here. We just need to look for all the things that are not already here, like the sales price. Okay. We're going to say it's $490. The acceptance date of the contract. You can't future date it. So I'm going to do today. We still have that listing expire date. I'm going to go up here to the top right and I'm going to look for the checklist type. Okay. So we need to once again say residential sale, because that's the type of transaction it is now. And this is where this is going to tell, the computer what kind of enterprise file to set up for you, so that when it closes and you upload a check, you can get paid. Okay. So that's why this is an important field that is hard to change after the fact. The residential sale checklist. It also affects the kind of file that you get. Down here, representation type. So all of these things would you be filling, you'd be asked also if you were just setting up a transaction. So if you were the buyer's agent, you didn't already have a listing, and you went out to Skyslope and said, create a transaction, it's going to walk you through a lot of those same questions, asking you questions so that it can set up the file for you. And these are all questions it's going to ask you. Now, representation type is who do you represent in the transaction? Okay. We've got purchase and listing, so buyer and seller. We've got both. So if you are dual agent, you need to come out here and change it to both. Otherwise, they don't understand on the enterprise side that you're supposed to be paid on both sides. So this is important, okay? And for the file review, we need to know that you're dual agent. We've got lease tenant and lease landlord. So if this was a residential lease and I was the listing agent, I would need to come out here and change this to lease landlord, okay? And there's both, again, if you are dual agent. Now, if you are representing the landlord and the tenant is unrepresented, you still leave it as lease landlord. Both is only if you're dual agent, okay? And then there's referral, BPO, and other. You can use other for a lot of things, okay? As long as it's not one of those first 6 with buying and renting, I would just use other. But that's who do you represent in the transaction. So we're going to leave it as listing because that is the case. And then when is it scheduled to close? Everything we do with file review is based on when it's going to close. So it is important for you to keep this date accurate. If it's closing early, please come out here and move the date up. If it's going to be postponed, push it back because, if our transaction team is out there creating commission statements and, it's going to close December 1st and you didn't tell us that, no one's creating your commission statement. No one's reviewing your file because no one thinks it's closing for another 3 weeks. So please make sure that you know that this date is driving a lot of our review and creation of commission statements, things like that. So keep this date accurate. You also don't want it to expire. If this date comes and goes, come out and update the date. Okay. MLS status, I always change this even though it's not required, to pending, bring backups, and then click next. Oops, I missed the MLS number. Okay. Put in the dummy number there and go forward. So it'll tell you if you missed something that had a red asterisk. So now we're in the contacts tab. You see that was the transaction tab. Now we're in the contacts. We have a green check mark by seller landlord because we already did that one. So now we need to go to the purchaser. Think of this as like a Rolodex or an address book. Okay, this is the buyers, and we don't represent them. We told Skyslope that we don't represent the buyer. So it doesn't make us give them any information other than the name. And then I'm going to add a second one because we also have Bobby Buyer. And we want to tell our compliance and transaction teams who is on the deal. Okay, so if there's 2 people, we want both names. And then it has a little glitch. See, I added Betty and I hit save, and then I added Bobby. And now it's telling me I never saved Betty. It does it every time to me, and that's just a glitch. So I always have to save the first one a second time and then click next. So this is the card that can easily confuse you for good reason. And if you're setting up a transaction, it sort of walks you through it a little differently. But basically, you need to give us contact information for either title company or attorney. We don't really use escrow companies in Illinois. So it's either title company or attorney. And they are 3 separate sections here. So even though they all have red asterisks, you only have to fill out one of the 3 sections. So if you're in an area that uses attorneys, you're going to come down, you're going to give us the attorney's first and last name, the name of their law firm, and their email address. I'm going to fill in title company information, but let's say I'm in an area that doesn't use attorneys. We use title companies, but I don't know what title company we're using yet. And that's still to be determined. But I want to get past, I can't get past this screen and I can't finish setting up my file if I don't enter something. So I'm going to enter TBD, to be determined, all ones for a phone number, and TBD for the title company, and TBD at tbd.com. Okay, and that will allow me to move forward. But it is very important that once you do that, you come back and fix this as soon as you can, because there's several instances where we would need to reach out to a title company at closing or right before closing or right after closing. It's very important that we can do that. We have a commission statement to send out. This obviously is not going to help us. So, and we only send it to you and the title company. So we need this information. So please come out here and fix this as soon as you can. And then I'm going to click next. And now I'm on the agent representing the other side. And we are going to say she is Barbara, buyer agent. And I have to give a phone number for her. And I always make a Remax. And then click save. And then, and that's it. Sometimes it glitches and wants you to give lender information. We don't ever need that. So just get yourself through that by clicking cash or by putting in and not applicable, whatever you need to do. Okay. But so we have completed all the required tabs, and I'm going to click next. And then I submit to get to the next stage. Now I'm on the commissions tab. This is the last one before it goes from being incomplete to being pending. This is the last step before I have a pending file. And that's also when I click submit from here, that's when I get an enterprise file. That's when you have a full-fledged transaction file instead of just a incomplete one, okay? In the commission info, now this is important, more so even than it was before the NAR settlement. We are going to create your commission statement based on the information in all of your documents, okay, so they have to match. The documents have to match what you've given us here. But you're telling us some very important information here. So our commission is 2.5, and that's what it says, okay, so we're going to make, if the sale price is 490, we're going to make 12,250. This is this is a formula. We can't change the number in this field. So if it's slightly wrong for some reason, like maybe it's a net sale price deal, and so you have to factor in a credit to the buyer first, and it's going to reduce your commission. Don't worry if this is not perfect, okay? But if you are on the buy side, let's say you have a buyer agreement that says 3%. The seller only agreed to pay 2%, and your buyer is paying you 1%. You still have to put that 3% in here, okay? That's all you need is the 3% in the sale commission. List side commission is only for the seller's agent, okay? Some people have thought, okay, well, I must put 2% here and 1% here because it's 2% from the seller and 1% from the buyer. No, okay? Your commission on the buy side is this sale commission only. You want it to be in total here. And then you would come down here and you would add a comment. Total commission 3%, seller paying 2, buyer paying 1. Okay, give us that detail. In this case here, if I was saying that the sale price was $490, but there's a 5% commission, and on my listing agreement I said I would only be paid on net price, you could say net sale price is $485,000 after a $5,000 buyer credit. Okay, and click save comment. Anything that you think we need, a breakdown, okay, who is paying what, put all of that here. If you want your commission statement to be accurate, give it to us here. And remember, this is your total. Whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, this is your total. Okay. Deposits. This is if we're holding earnest money, yes or no. Okay, I'm going to say no, that we're not holding earnest money. But if we were going to hold earnest money, the contract said we were going to be holding $5,000. I would enter that here. Okay. Yes, we're going to be holding $5,000. And we'll come back to that and how that's impacted. Because for instance, what if our commission was only $2,250 rather than $12,250? We would be holding a lot more earnest money than what our commission was going to be. If they were exact, great. If we were holding $5,000 in earnest money and our commission's $5,000, we're completely set. We're not going to get any money at closing. We don't have to send any money to closing. But if in this case, we're going to have $5,000, but our commission is $12,250, that means we need to get $7,250 from closing. If our total commission is $12,250 and we're holding $15,000 in commission, we're going to get what? $2,250 that we have to send to the title company before closing. So if we have excess earnest money, if we're holding more earnest money than what our commission is going to be, this is very important information because we need to get wire instructions from that title company and we need to wire money. So this is all very important. Whether we are holding earnest money or not, we need to know that pretty quickly, okay? The referral, you just have to answer yes, no referral, external or internal. Okay, so if there's no referral, you're not paying anybody a referral, great. If it's an outside agent or a relocation company, something like that, Zillow, those are all external. Internal is another eXp agent. Please give us that information here. Once a week, we are having to do a post-closing correction because someone agreed to pay a referral, and it wasn't until after it closed and they got paid that they remembered to tell us. And so that's a big mess. Okay, so just make sure that if you are going to be paying a referral, give us this information here, even if you don't have the document yet, because then at least we won't pay it without asking. Okay, and here's that comment that I left. You can add more of them. Okay, commission split, if you have more than one agent, this is where you can add that information. Okay, if you have two agents and you're 50-50, that's what you'd put. If you have a transaction coordinator on your team who is a licensed agent, so you can pay them here, they'd be your co-agent and you give them $500 and the rest would go to you, you can put that here. Okay, so that's all that stuff can be done within the commissions tab. Now, when I click submit here, it goes to pending. See, now I have a transaction, and yeah, I have all the tabs. Okay. Back a while ago, I told you that adding a co-agent was difficult from the setup screen. It didn't work quite right. So you can come down here to co-buyer agent. You can click add, and I could add, for instance, Diana Chapa, who is one of our CCAs, is also an agent. I could add her here, okay, as my co-agent, okay? And then she would be here. And then she would also have access to the Skyslope file too. If she went into Skyslope, she could pull this file up because I did this. And when I went to the commission tab, I could, it didn't refresh quite all the way. in a sec, it will add eventually where I can do a split between me and Diana here. It just hasn't updated quite quickly. So now we have in our checklist though, we have we have a bigger checklist of documents, but you have all of this information here. This email address did not change. You've got the sale price now, and now we've got the buyer and the seller. This is important that we see all the names because then we know who's supposed to sign everything. Okay. Now we have down here the listing docs that we already did. Okay. We pretending that these are all done, right? Now we've got an additional checklist of documents, which is the sales docs and the closing docs. Now, the thing that gets confusing, which is totally understandable, is that this checklist of documents is the same, whether you're on the buyer side, the seller side, or your dual agent. So everyone gets the same checklist of documents. So basically, you're as the listing agent, you're getting the same checklist of documents as a buyer agent would get. So when you see buyer agreements and stuff, don't let that throw you. It says that's why we have in parentheses buy side only. If you were on the buyer side, this is where you would put your buyer agreement and your buyer signed ABA and wire fraud. Okay. But we're not on the buyer side. So that's why they say not applicable for listings. So you can, if you don't like just leaving them blank, you could come out here and you could put not applicable. And, it doesn't matter though. Like our staff knows those are not applicable for you. So you don't have to do that. But, don't let that throw you off. If you're on the buy side though, obviously you would need all of those documents there. The sellers just need, and everybody would need the sales contract. We have a spot here for agreements and addendums. One very important one is if there's a compensation addendum. As with many of our contracts, I would say the majority of our contracts, there is a compensation addendum for the seller to pay the buyer's agent because the buyer is in an agreement with their agent to pay them whatever they've agreed to. And so they have asked the seller to pay at least part of that compensation. So that compensation addendum, whether it's, a board document or whether it's our direct comp from seller, that is going to go into the purchase agreements and addendums. If your local board has addendums like a inspection repair response, some boards have that and it's required. This is where you could put that as well. You could put the personal property list of all the things that are going to convey for $0 would all go here as well. So this spot is just for addendums and amendments. Okay. You've got another MLS sheet. We'd like to see an MLS sheet here that shows it's contingent if possible. Okay. And again, full agent report with the private remarks in a PDF. We've got the earnest money check. Everybody, even if we're not holding it, we should have a receipt for it. As the listing agent, we are responsible to know that our seller now has earnest money. Because if that buyer wrote a contract but never deposited the earnest money, our seller has nothing, doesn't have that deposit, right? So even if we're not holding it, we should have a receipt here. If we're on the buyer side, we should have a receipt showing that our buyer has deposited money. Okay. We've got the property disclosure, lead paint, and radon again. And of course, we don't need the lead paint. So I would say not applicable there. So those are the documents we still need: the contract, the addendums, an MLS sheet, earnest money, property disclosure, and radon. Now that we're under contract, I probably have one document that, it's gone back and forth and everyone has signed and initialed. And now I have this one ugly PDF that has like 6 things in it, right? So rather than copying that one PDF into 5 places, I'm going to go into my documents tab. I'm going to upload it there and split it. So as I said, this is sort of your file drawer. Okay. So I'm going to upload my training document package, which is just a contract with a bunch of disclosures. And I can just drag it over here into this area and it automatically knows I want to upload it, right? So now here's my listing agreement, and the paperclip shows that it's assigned to the checklist. And now I've got this big ugly PDF. I'm not assigning this anywhere, but I am going to use it to copy more individual documents off of it. So I'm going to hit the split button, okay, for that document. Now, Skyslope has come up with this AI splitting tool. I don't recommend it. It messes up a lot. It doesn't, and it might be right, even if it was right 75% of the time. The 25% of the time that you're going to have to go in and fix it, it's not worth it. Okay. So to me, I clear suggestions and I do my own. Okay. So I'll show you what it looks like to do it yourself. And it's your call. Okay. But the first thing I do is the contract. Okay. And it tries to help you. It starts pulling up suggestions from the checklist. And I'm like, yes, sales contract. That's what I want the first one to be. And I can verify these pages by coming over here and sliding down, but I can verify that the first 13 pages are the contract. And even if you know your contract's 13 pages, make sure that that's what it is in the PDF. It doesn't take much for one page to all of a sudden be accidentally blank and have it turn out that your contract is actually 14 pages and you split everything one page off because you didn't check. So, but this is the new document name, and this is where it's going to go in the checklist. So I'm killing two birds with one stone. My property disclosure is the next 4 pages. Now the checklist, I have a sales doc property disclosure and I have a list docs property disclosure because it was in my listing docs and now it's in my sales docs. I should already have a listing docs in my listing doc checklist. So this wouldn't show required, it would show already completed, right? So I'm going to put it in the sales docs. That's what SD and LD are. I'm going to put it in the sales docs property disclosure, and it's 14 through 17. Now, the last thing I need is the radon disclosure because the 19th page is junk that I don't need. But I'm going to pretend like I forgot to pick a checklist spot for it, and I'm just going to click split and assign. You can add a row. You can keep adding rows for as long as you need. You can copy the same document twice into 2 different spots, but each document in the Documents tab can only be assigned in one spot. So if you want to, let's say your MLS sheet, you're putting it in both spots. You can copy it twice and put it in 2 different places because all this is copying. It's not actually splitting. You're making copies. So you can copy the same thing as many times as you need. So I clicked split and assign. So it's going to put the first 2 docs right into the checklist. I'm going to go back to the Documents tab. So in the Documents tab here, you see that I now have 3 new documents because before I only had these 2, and it always puts the newest one at the top. So, so as you're uploading new documents in a couple weeks time and you've got 30 things out here, you can always look at the top. So I've got 2 that I've already assigned, and I forgot to assign the radon because I want to show you how to do that. So if you've emailed documents here or you've uploaded documents, you're going to have to assign them if you didn't already through that last piece. So I can click on the radon disclosure and I can click assign, and then I can pick where it's going to go in the checklist. Okay. It's easy to see it says sales docs. It's people will sometimes just scroll down real quick without paying attention and not realize that they actually are putting it in the list docs instead of the sales docs. So just be careful where you're putting it. I'm going to put it in the radon spot in the checklist, and you can see there it's assigned. Okay, so the only thing not assigned is that ugly doc because it's got too many things in it, and that doesn't help me. So I go back to the checklist, and now you can see that I've assigned everything. Okay, everything that's in yellow in review means I've put a document there. Okay, and obviously you would do all the rest too. You wouldn't need these 3 because we're not on the buyer side, and that's how that works. Okay. One more thing I want to show you while we're in here is in the log. If you were ever like, and we'll have people say, I uploaded that last week, and we can go into the log and say, here it is right here. Here's when you uploaded it. And that could be useful to you because you could be like, wait a second, when did I do that? Or who did that? Why does my file look like that? Who's been messing with my file? You can come out here and see who did it. You can see which staff has been in your file and looking at your docs. Okay. So here's all the information when I converted it to a transaction. Here's everything I added, new information. Here's documents being uploaded and assigned. Okay, I uploaded the contract and I assigned the contract. That happened simultaneously during the split. Okay, but you can see all of that and it's date and time stamped. Okay, so that's the log, and that's the last tab in your Skyslope file. And then when we review your file, when one of the CCAs most likely is reviewing your file, they might, I can't show you what that looks like here because I'm not on a staff file, but they can accept your documents. They can reject, they could say, hey, missing buyer to sorry, excuse my typos, missing buyer to signature. So maybe you actually get a rejection on one of your documents. Okay, no big deal. Very few files are perfect the first time. You'll get a comment here. You can come here and put comments. Like let's say you are in the middle of working out your file and you give a note here that you want us to see. We will not see the note until we go into your file to review it. This is putting a note here is the equivalent of going into a file drawer, putting a sticky note in the file, putting the file back in the drawer and shutting the drawer and walking away. We will see it eventually, but it doesn't bring it to our attention. You have to email us. So if you have a question like, hey, you guys told me I needed something, I'm not sure if what I uploaded is right. Can you look? Totally fine, right? Email us at il.broker@exprealty.net and say, hey, can you review 123 Main Street for me and tell me if that document I uploaded is what you're looking for? But don't just put a note here and think we're going to see it because we won't see it until the next time we were going to go into your file and review it. Okay. So that's how Skyslope works. I'm now going to go back over to Okay, so when they review your file, they will send you an email, and it's going to look like this one, the checklist updated, and it's going to say who sent it to you, which will almost always be Diana, Susan, or Joanna, and it's going to have a little note from them sometimes, and then a snapshot of your checklist. And any of those rejection notes in the comment box are going to show in the email, so you can see right away. So when you get these, and this is what they look like in your inbox, it'll say checklist update with the property address. These are not junk. These are coming directly from the person who sent it to you, the staff member. Okay, so the more that you get used to opening these and looking at them, the less surprises you'll have as it gets closer to closing and you go into your SkySlope file and you realize there's a whole bunch of stuff that got rejected and is marked as missing. You don't want that kind of surprise. So, just know that these emails are your friend. Okay. I talked about the CDA, because in the closing docs that was in the middle of your checklist of documents, there's a closing docs section. That's where you're going to put your check and settlement statement so that you get paid after closing. But also in that spot is the commission statement, in that the transaction team is going to create that for you and put it in your file and send it to either the attorney or the title company that you have in your contacts. This is what one of those looks like. And they are building this and they are creating this from the information that you have put in your commission tab, because the information you put in your commission tab actually feeds over to enterprise. So it's important that you have this stuff correct in the commissions tab, and that you have given them additional notes at the bottom about who is paying what. For instance, if it's split, if it's 2.5%, but the seller's paying 2% and the buyer's paying 0.5, you need to put that in the comments just to be clear. Okay. And then also in your documents, you should have a buyer agreement that says 2.5% and a compensation addendum from the seller showing they're paying 2. Okay. It should all be documented. But this is what that commission statement is going to look like. And it will be created by the transaction team and shared with you and whoever is in your contacts tab under title or attorney. Now, once you get paid, or once the closing happens, you will have a commission check made payable to eXp Realty, and you'll have this final settlement statement. Now, it is important that before closing, either through the attorney or through the title company, that you ask for a preliminary settlement statement to make sure your commission is correct. It's very important that we advocate for ourselves that way, especially now that, on the buy side, before, if you weren't paid what was in MLS as a co-op, you could make the listing brokerage pay you. That's gone. Okay. We don't have that arbitration anymore because it's no longer a co-op commission. It is direct from the seller. So if you don't get paid at closing, your only way to collect is to sue somebody. So we want to make sure that we are paid at closing. So you want to get ahead of it and you want to request your preliminary settlement statement so that you can verify your commission is correct. And if you're on the sell side, you want to make sure that the title company or the attorney see your listing agreement and know what you're supposed to be getting paid. And if you're on the buy side, we have a buyer invoice now that you can use to spell out exactly who is paying your commission. If it's part from the seller and part from the buyer or whatever, it helps you break it out. And you can send that with the contract right away when you give that to the lender, to the buyer's attorney, or to the title company. You make sure that they know who is paying you and how much. Okay. And then once that all works, and once you have exactly what you need to have after closing, you'll have a check and you'll have a signed settlement statement. These are the two things you upload into your SkySlope file to get paid. So I try to go to the title company and pick it up, even if I'm not going to closing. I call them and say, hey, hold on to that. I'm coming to get it. Because then I know it's going into SkySlope right away, because we will pay you as soon as this check and settlement statement are uploaded, because we know the check is in the mail. We know you are mailing us the check. So we will pay you in advance. But the check does need to arrive eventually at our lockbox, at our bank. Okay. If you can't go to closing, I call them and I say, hey, can't be there. Please make sure to mail the check and settlement statement to the address on my commission statement, not the address on the check, because the check is going to reflect your MLS address, the address from the contract, which is your office address, whether it's Schaumburg, Chicago, or one of the others. So if I go back for a second to the CDA, on the commission statement at the bottom, we have remittance instructions about where they should mail things. Okay. So if I can't go to closing, I call the closer and say, please make sure you're mailing this to that address and not the address on the check. Because if it goes here, that's a Regis office. They bulk up our mail about once a week. They forward it to me at my house. Once I get it, I do scan it in so that you can get paid, but you're losing probably 2 weeks there. Okay. Questions about CDAs and settlements. So I told you about the broker team. I told you to email il.broker, right? With all kinds of compliance document questions about your deal, all of it. That's il.broker. Questions about your commission statement and your settlement. In other words, getting paid. Once the property's closed, once there's a commission check, you want to know something about the timing of getting paid. You want to know why you didn't get paid. All of those questions, or if you need your CDA and you don't have it yet, or there's something wrong with your CDA and you need a clarification or a revision, you are going to talk to the transaction team. And if you're a solo agent, you're going to use il.transactions@exprealty.net. If you're on a team, if your SkySlope office says IL Teams, then that's who you're emailing, il.teamtransactions@exprealty.net. If you're on one of the mega teams, okay, and you'll probably know if you're on it, you're on, gosh, I can't think. Selling 321 is one that's gone now. If you'll know if you're on one of the mega teams, they have their own transaction specialist that has a unique email address to them, to their team. So you'll have to ask your team for that. If you think this is you and you don't know, you can come ask us and we'll help you find it. Okay. They are not who you email. If you have a document question, if you're like, hey, I have a note in my file that I need, an agency disclosure, you don't email them. Okay. They are CDAs and settlements. All of those questions come to the broker team. These are those two addresses that are on the CDA. One is for regular mail and one is for overnight, because the regular mail is a post office box. And so the overnight is a, street address to get it there. This is our bank this is our Wells Fargo account, this lockbox. If you do upload a check, this isn't like an online deposit where you put the check in a drawer. Once you scan the check into SkySlope, that's to get paid in advance, but that check still has to arrive. If you get paid and then that check doesn't arrive within a couple of days or a week, you're going to hear from the accounting department. Okay. So it is important. Excuse me. You don't have to overnight it. You definitely do not have to overnight it, but you do have to mail the check in a pretty timely manner. Okay. I try to mail it out that day if I put it in SkySlope. If you are on a lease, whether you're on the landlord or the tenant side, we need the eXp lease invoice in the file. Now, it's a great document for sending to whoever is supposed to pay you because it has that remittance information on it with our tax ID and where to mail the check. And then you get to tell them how much they owe you. Okay. And if you are if you're representing the landlord and you're going to be paying the tenant agent as well, it allows you to give us that breakdown here. This is important. This document replaces both the settlement statement and the CDA. So on a sale, you would have both a CDA and a settlement statement for the accounting people in the end. On a rental transaction, this lease invoice does both of those things. We can't settle your file without it. Okay. So you have to create one of these. This is the eXp referral agreement. If we're the ones that are going to be getting paid because you're referring out a client, you really want to use this document rather than like a local board referral, because it has our remittance instructions on it. It has our tax ID and it has where to mail the check. So it's a good idea to use our referral agreement if you are referring someone out. You can use it if you are the one receiving money or receiving a client as well. If the other person didn't send you one, you can use our document. The originating broker is the one who had the client and sent that referral to the receiving broker. And then the receiving broker is going to pay the originating broker. So sometimes people get those two confused. The client information, the terms, for how long and how much. And then, everybody signs it. Steve has to sign, our DMB has to sign your referrals. This is that wiring fraud in ABA. Okay. The ABA gets updated from time to time when our vendor relationships change. So, and it hasn't been changed in a little while now. So, but, several months for sure, at least 6 months. Sometimes it changes more frequently. So when it does change, you just want to make sure you're paying attention to using the current document. We'll tell you and there'll be a period of time of adjustment. So if we ever tell you, hey, you're using an old ABA, just, if you need us to show you the new one, we can. If you're using SkySlope Forms, which is our new library of documents within the DigiSign platform, SkySlope Forms, and you're using those libraries, you're always going to have the most current documents because they automatically get updated. The wiring fraud advisory, this is the eXp version. Your clients sign off on it. And that's, we only ever need our clients to sign these, and we don't send these to anybody. These are in-house documents. We get our clients to sign, you put them in SkySlope, and that's it. You don't have to send them to their attorney, to the lender, to the other side. These are strictly in-house and they are by client. So if you did 3 deals with a client, they only need to sign these 2 documents once. You can keep reusing them. Okay. We have a 2-minute video on how to find Skyslope forms. Hello, we are here today to do a short demonstration on finding your documents in Skyslope forms. So you start in your Skyslope dashboard and you go up to the apps button up here at the top and you click on forms. Now, when you're in Skyslope forms, even if you are not a subscriber to DigiSign, which is what it would take for you to be able to use Skyslope forms to send documents out for other people to fill out and sign, you can still use the library function of Skyslope forms, even if you are not a DigiSign subscriber. If you have not yet, you need to come up under your name on the top right, go to libraries and add Illinois Association of Realtors and any other local board that may be participating. They don't all participate, but if your board does, you'd be able to find them and add them. Okay, like I could add Chicago Association of Realtors, but it's not going to let me because I'm not a member. But everyone can add Illinois Association of Realtors. You'll automatically have the eXp libraries already there. So then you go back to the main screen and you can go up to Browse Libraries. Okay, so once you've added Illinois Association of Realtors, even if all you had was that one in eXp, you'd have access to almost everything that you needed. So you could go to eXp Illinois, for instance, and see, and this is getting populated more and more every day with more documents that you will need. So the wiring fraud is in here, the affiliated business arrangement disclosure in both Spanish and English, commission reduction, lease invoice, referral agreement. All these things are already out here. And like I said, we are adding more to it all the time. You could also go to Illinois Association of Realtors and you could find your disclosures and the exclusive right to sell. It's the 342, the IAR form, the exclusive buyer agreements are out here. Any of those, the radon and lead paint disclosures are out here because those are IAR documents. So even if you are not a subscriber to DigiSign, you can do that. You can come here, grab your form and the Consumer's Guide to Agency, for instance, and download it. Okay, and then that's where you're going to go to find documents going forward. You will no longer see them in Skyslope under Office Docs. Thank you very much. So now we're going to talk about earnest money deposits. Some of our agents, for different reasons, depending on the market where they work and things like that, it's easier if title companies hold earnest money, and that's completely fine. So some of our eXp agents still will indicate in MLS, listing brokerage doesn't hold earnest money. That is completely your choice. You have that choice. But the appropriate holders of earnest money, the escrowees, are the title companies, real estate attorneys, or either brokerage. Those are all appropriate for holding earnest money. If eXp is going to hold it and you need to get it into our escrow account, that is a different account than our commission account. Okay, so it is important that we keep those separate. So the only way that we can take earnest money and get it into our trust account now at eXp is through Deposit Link. And Deposit Link is online. It's ACH. If you're familiar with Venmo and PayPal and Google Pay and all of these things, you know that you can send someone an invitation to pay you. And that's sort of what like Deposit Link does. Okay. It creates a link that you can send to the other agent for their client to pay the earnest money through ACH online. And few advantages to that. No one's driving around with a check. And that check has to get somewhere, right? And we're a cloud-based brokerage. So where are you going to take that check? So it became a huge hassle and it was a problem logistically and through the trust account rules. This is just a much better and more modern process. There is a $15 fee, however. And that is, if that's a problem for somebody, you can always let someone else hold the earnest money, but we cannot take checks. Now you access Deposit Link through your passport, which is your exprealty.okta.com passport dashboard, whatever you want to call it. It looks like this. This is where you can go to your enterprise, to your My eXp, to the marketing stuff. All of that is out here. Okay. Deposit Link is one of the tiles. I call them tiles. I don't know if that's even a technical term, but Deposit Link is one of your tiles. You click on that and you can access your account using your exprealty.com account. And you just create an invitation to pay. And once you do, there'll be the buyer who or the payer of the deposit link of the earnest money will pay a $15 fee each time. So if they want to break it into 2 payments, they're going to be paying $30 in fees. Just, that's something to think about. And then if the deal cancels, if we have to return the earnest money to the buyer, there is no fee for that. So that is another advantage, is when we send the money back, it's much quicker because they're going to get it back a lot faster. So when you are going into Deposit Link, you're going to create a deal and you're going to send a link/invite to the buyer with the property address and the amount requested. And when the buyer pays the earnest money, you're notified and you're going to get a receipt that looks like this to upload into Skyslope as your earnest money receipt. And you can share this receipt with the lender, with the attorneys, with the other agent, with whoever needs the receipt. This one is a nice professional looking receipt of money being deposited with the property address on it and the amount. So it's all good. Okay. Then in your commissions tab, you will of course want to make sure we know we are holding earnest money. And you want to keep tabs on whether, if we are holding more than what your commission is, what the eXp commission is going to be, that's something you're going to want to keep an eye on. Okay. Okay. Any questions? So anytime that you have a question for the broker team, you can reach us by coming to the broker floor. That's exp.world/IL broker room. You can email us at il.broker@exprealty.net. And we have a ticketing system for those emails. They do not get lost. We get right back to you. I promise. That's a great way to reach us. We do have an 888 number, which is 888-574-9405. And even if you ask to speak to a broker, and if none of us can pick up at that moment, we do get a voicemail and we will see it. But I do believe that emailing us or coming into the world are the 2 best ways. You can also use Workplace. If you're familiar with using the eXp Workplace platform, you can go to the Illinois broker page and you can post questions there, and you can use Workplace Chat. I always recommend that you set up a chat and put the 3 of us, Craig, Steve, and myself, in a chat with you and call it you can name it your broker chat, and you can use Workplace Chat to send us a message. And, because Workplace Chat is how we speak to each other on the staff side all day. So we're going to see your message if you do that. Okay. So those are the best ways to get in touch with us if you have any questions. We thank you for coming in, and we thank you for the time that you put in your business by being here, and hope that you feel free to come to the floor with any questions that you have.